You wouldn't dare. Friends, neighbors, fellow carbon-based life forms, gather round, let's talk about Canada. Yes, that friendly nation to the north. The land of maple syrup, hockey, and passive-aggressive apologies. They've been awfully quiet lately, wouldn't you say, but don't let their politeness fool you. Beneath that calm and friendly exterior lies a nation with a rich history, a strong sense of identity, and a fierce determination to protect its interests. Turns out, they're not just politely queuing up for universal health care anymore. They're playing hardball, and it involves something America desperately needs: oil. You see, our friends in Washington decided to slap some tariffs on Canadian goods. Because, when you're already in a trade war with China, why not poke the friendly bear with a stick too? This move has not gone unnoticed in the Great White North. Canadians are known for their patience, but even they have their limits. Canada, understandably, wasn't thrilled. They've threatened to retaliate by turning off the oil taps. That's right, the oil that America so desperately guzzles down. $100 billion worth of it, gone in a puff of diplomatic smoke. Imagine the chaos that would ensue. Gas prices would skyrocket, the economy would take a hit, and the political fallout would be immense. It's a bold move, but one that Canada is seriously considering. Now some might say, come on, Canada wouldn't really do that, would they? And to that, I say, never underestimate a nation that can survive a winter where your eyelashes freeze solid. They're tougher than they look, and they might just be ready to teach Uncle Sam a lesson in economic warfare. After all, Canada has a long history of standing up for itself. From the War of 1812 to the modern-day trade disputes, they've shown time and again that they're not afraid to take a stand. So, the next time you think of Canada as just a friendly neighbor, remember that they're also a formidable player on the global stage, and they might just be ready to remind the world of that fact. Let's face it, America loves oil. We love it more than a bald eagle loves a good fish buffet. We guzzle it down like it's going out of style. And where do we get a big chunk of this liquid gold? You guessed it, Canada. They supply a whopping 60% of our oil imports. That's more than half for those keeping score at home. We're talking millions of barrels a day, flowing down south through pipelines like a giant greasy artery. This oil keeps our cars running, our factories humming, and our politicians promising cheap gas. Now, you might think that stopping this oil flow would be as simple as flipping a switch. Just imagine, a single lever that could halt the movement of millions of barrels of oil, bringing the entire system to a standstill. It sounds almost too easy, right? But it's not that easy. The reality is far more complex, involving a labyrinth of legal, political, and economic factors that make such a decision anything but straightforward. Engineers and policymakers alike would face a monumental challenge. You see, there's this thing called the 1977 US-Canada Pipeline Treaty. This treaty isn't just a piece of paper, it's a cornerstone of North American energy policy. It was designed to ensure a stable and reliable flow of oil between the two nations, regardless of the political climate. It's like a legally binding friendship bracelet, except instead of colorful threads, it involves hydrocarbons and international law. This agreement has stood the test of time, weathering various political storms and economic shifts. This treaty basically says that neither country can mess with the flow of oil between them. It's a mutual understanding that has significant implications for both nations' energy security and economic stability. It's like a diplomatic chastity belt for our energy relationship. This means that any attempt to disrupt the flow of oil would not only be a technical challenge, but also a diplomatic and legal quagmire. So, if Canada wants to turn off the taps, they might have to navigate a legal minefield first. Lawyers would be poring over documents, and courtrooms would be filled with heated debates and legal arguments. And let's not forget the political headache. Politicians would be caught in a whirlwind of public opinion, international pressure, and economic consequences. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, he of the charming smile and impressive hair, would have to deal with some unhappy campers back home. His government would face intense scrutiny and criticism from various stakeholders. The oil industry in Canada is a big deal, especially in provinces like Alberta. This region's economy is heavily dependent on the oil sector, providing jobs and revenue that are crucial for its prosperity. Cutting off their biggest customer might not go down too well. The economic repercussions would be felt far and wide, affecting not just the oil companies but also the workers and communities that rely on this industry. It's like telling a room full of hockey players that the Stanley Cup is canceled. Not a pretty picture. The public outcry would be immense, and the political fallout could be severe. making it a decision fraught with peril. So what happens if Canada actually goes through with this? Well, buckle up, Buttercup, because it's going to be a bumpy ride. For America, it could mean higher gas prices, which, let's be honest, is about as popular as a skunk at a picnic. We're talking potential economic chaos here. Inflation could soar, businesses could suffer, and people might actually have to start carpooling. And Canada, well, they wouldn't be off the hook either. Remember that whole biggest customer thing? Yeah, that's kind of important. Their economy could take a hit, and those oil workers might have to trade in their hard hats for unemployment forms. Not exactly a recipe for international harmony. Section 5, Canada's countermove diversification is key. Now, Canada isn't stupid. They know they've been relying a little too heavily on the US of A for their oil income. For years, the United States has been the primary buyer of Canadian oil, creating a dependency that has made Canada vulnerable to the whims of its southern neighbor. This over-reliance has prompted Canadian policymakers to rethink their strategy and seek out new opportunities. They know they've been relying a little too heavily on the US of A for their oil income. The economic relationship has been beneficial but also risky. Any political or economic instability in the US could have a direct impact on Canada's oil revenue. This realization has led to a significant shift in how Canada approaches its oil trade. So they've been busy little beavers working on Plan B diversification. Diversification isn't just a buzzword, it's a survival strategy. By spreading their oil exports across multiple markets, Canada aims to reduce its economic vulnerability. This means investing in new infrastructure, exploring untapped markets, and forging new trade relationships. They've been eyeing up other markets like Asia where they can sell their precious crude. Asia, with its rapidly growing economies and increasing energy demands, presents a lucrative opportunity for Canada. Countries like China, India, and Japan are always on the lookout for reliable energy sources, making them ideal partners for Canada's diversification efforts. They've even been building new pipelines like the Trans Mountain expansion to get their oil to the Pacific coast. This project is a critical component of Canada's diversification strategy. By extending their pipeline network to the Pacific, Canada can more easily access Asian markets, ensuring a steady flow of oil exports even if relations with the US become strained. It's like building a giant straw from the Canadian oil sands to the thirsty economies of China and India. This metaphorical straw represents not just a physical pipeline, but a lifeline for Canada's oil industry. By tapping into these new markets, Canada can secure its economic future and reduce its dependency on any single country. Of course, this has environmentalists seeing redder than a maple leaf in autumn. The expansion of oil infrastructure has sparked significant opposition from environmental groups. They argue that increasing oil production and building new pipelines will have devastating effects on the environment, from oil spills to increased carbon emissions. But hey, desperate times call for desperate measures, right? In the face of economic uncertainty and global competition, Canada is making bold moves to secure its place in the global oil market. While the path to diversification is fraught with challenges, the potential rewards make it a risk worth taking. Section 6. A Mexican Standoff? Now, America isn't the only one feeling the heat. Mexico, our southern neighbor and purveyor of delicious tacos, is also caught in this trade tiff. They're another major oil supplier to the US, and they're not too happy about the tariffs either. Some folks reckon Mexico might just tell America to hold my cerveza and start selling their oil elsewhere. Places like Europe and Asia are always hungry for energy, and Mexico might just decide to play the field. Of course, this would mean America would have to find even more oil from somewhere else, which is about as likely as finding a sober Irishman on St. Patrick's Day. Section 7, OPEC+, the wild card in the oil game. And then there's OPEC+, the oil-producing cartel that's like the cool kids table in the global cafeteria. They've been increasing oil production lately, which could help ease some of the supply issues caused by this whole Canada-US kerfuffle. Of course, OPEC+ is notoriously unpredictable. They're like the moody teenager of the global energy market. One minute they're increasing production, the next they're cutting it back. Trying to predict their next move is like trying to herd cats. But hey, at least they're adding a little more intrigue to this whole geopolitical drama. Section 8, the art of the deal or the art of the meltdown. Now let's talk about the man who started this whole mess, Donald J. Trump. Yes, he's back, folks. And he's just as subtle as a bull in a china shop. His reasoning for these tariffs? Well, it's a bit of a mixed bag. He's worried about fentanyl coming across the border, which is a legitimate concern. But he's also worried about immigration, trade deficits, and probably the fact that Canada has better healthcare. Some say he even had a good old-fashioned meltdown in the Oval Office when he heard about Canada's potential retaliation. Section 9, the future of North American oil, a slippery slope. So, what does the future hold for this whole oil-soaked saga? Honestly, your guess is as good as mine. It's a volatile situation, like a game of Jenga played on a roller coaster. One wrong move and the whole thing could come crashing down. One thing's for sure, the US and Canada need to find a way to play nice. We're talking about two countries that share a border, a language, and a love of ice hockey. Surely we can find a way to share some oil without resorting to economic warfare. Otherwise, we might all be left out in the cold.